A purpose-driven career is very rewarding, right? People are burned out with jobs. They're just burned out. Yeah, it's hard to be pissed off when you're grateful.
They don't run.
You just can't do it.
Can't do it. It's
like I challenge anybody to be truly, not jokingly, but truly pissed off and grateful at the same time. I don't know. Like, think about being around people that are miserable. There's no attraction power.
No.
Zero.
Okay, well, I was one of those.
Right? It's like literally that basic emotion. So happiness started with gratitude, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like waking up every day, right?
Yeah.
And being, what am I grateful for every night? Like, can I do that today? Like, so gratitude started, then happiness followed, and then success. So the second thing I want to talk about is challenging yourself and others to be better, to do better, to be growth-minded, to become the best version of yourself. So Play Life Differently is all about discovering yourself, discovering values, belief systems, challenging your values and your beliefs. Like, where do those come from? Do you truly believe in those things? Our experiences in our life shape our beliefs and our future. Everything you if you think of a brand new baby, they don't believe in anything. They have no idea, right? I mean, they're 1-2 years old. The moms and the dads, they teach their kids beliefs. They teach them their religion. They teach them about education. They teach them, behavior. And this might be controversial, right? But like for me, raising my kids, like the buck stopped with me on the kids that I was developing, right? My kids had very little to do with the teachers. It was my job as the parent to instill the beliefs and the values. If you're challenging yourself and challenging your beliefs and values, it's okay to say like, I believe in X. Okay, well, you need to stop and think of like, where did that come from? Who taught me that belief, right? Because I'm in the wealth management space, people have a lot of beliefs around money. They have a lot of beliefs around, do they spend first? Do they save first? How much do they save? How much do they spend? Like, do they value material things, right? Do they value nice furniture, nice cars, nice technology, TVs, things like that? Or do they value experiences? And you can value it all, but you got to start prioritizing those things. It's a learned belief. It's a learned behavior. And so when it comes to challenging yourself, to become the best version, you really need to understand, well, what are the things that I believe in relationships? What do I believe in, with my career, right? A purpose-driven career is very rewarding, right? People are burned out with jobs. They're just burned out. And I remember it. I remember struggling early on and being exhausted and burned out, and I was not liking my career. It's one of the reasons I switched from physical therapy out of it, because I didn't have the energy. Because at the end of the day, I didn't believe I should be in that career. And it took me a long time to figure that out. So challenging your beliefs and challenging your values is key. And I think if you're doing that on a regular basis, it takes a lot of work, but I think being intentional, slowing your mind down a little bit, pausing 3 to 5 seconds before you respond or react to someone. It's interesting. I was in a Uber ride last weekend. So I visited my daughter for Parents Weekend, and I jump in the Uber. I'm leaving them. My 2 daughters, they're going to go to we're at their house. We're going to go to the bar, and I'm like, all right, well, Dad's out. Peace, right? I'm getting old. I need to go to bed, right? It's like 11:30. So I get in the Uber, and it's this young gentleman. And he's like, hey man, he's like, man, you got in the car with such like confidence and blah, blah. He's like, what are you doing? You're leaving. It's Parents Weekend. I mean, he's been Ubering everybody around Parents Weekend. So he knows the deal. And I'm like, no, my daughters are going to the bar without me. I'm headed back to the hotel. And he was stopping me. He's like, you're what? He's like, you trust your daughters? Like Parents Weekend? It's kind of crazy. I'm like, for sure. Because they're good people. That's what I told him. And I said, like, and he's like, yeah. And he admitted he's got two young kids. He's got a little 3-year-old boy. And he was giving me examples of what he's teaching his son. He's like, I just want him to be a good human and things like that. And so we talked about, for 20 minutes on the Uber ride to my hotel, about being intentional. And this is where I'm going. He gave it a story where he kind of like reprimanded his son pretty harshly at something he did. And now, mind you, his son's 3. And he's like, you got to hold the door open for your mom. And this kid's 3. I was like, I remember when my kids were little, and I said to myself, like, okay, they're 3, they're 7, they're whatever age they are. Like, they're just kids. It's my job to teach them. So I told this gentleman in the car, I said, I learned to take 3 to 5 seconds before I reacted. And in that 3 to 5 seconds, I would think to myself, okay, what is age appropriate for this 3-year-old? What can they understand at 3? Or what can they understand at 7? Or what can they understand at 16? I worked really hard at slowing my reactions down so that my brain had time to process the right response. And that was a challenge for me. That's not kind of how we were raised. There were certain things you didn't do in my parents' household, and we just knew what the rules were. But if you went against it, like, it was an instant reaction, and it's not, and that's not a knock on my parents at all, right? Because the values and the beliefs they taught were really good. But I wanted to be a little bit more intentional with how I raised my daughters, and so that 3 to 5 seconds is key. And what's interesting when you take 3 to 5 seconds, so whether it's your kids or your loved ones or your relationship you're in or your coworkers, taking 3 to 5 seconds is not a long time, but the brain is so smart. It works so fast. Those neurons fire like in milliseconds. If you know who you are and you know your values and your beliefs ahead of time, taking 3 to 5 seconds, your brain will get to the place for the right decision and the right response, true to who you are. And what happens when you do that is that the amount of times you regret something you say, the amount of times you regret doing something you do, go down like exponentially. And so when I say like, I am truly happy and I have no regrets in my life, it's because I think pretty deep, but sometimes it's only for 3 seconds, about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to react. Now, sometimes I've failed miserably at that, right? Emotions get the better of us, right? Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions. And so in those moments, I haven't taken the time to think about what I'm thinking before I respond. And so then I just react on the first gut emotion. So, but challenging myself, that would be my advice. Take 3 to 5 seconds before you respond, before you react, and it's not easy to do. It's like one of the hardest things. At least that's what I've found. So with that though, I'm going to pivot a little bit to something that I think a lot of us have heard about: emotional intelligence. This goes back to understanding who you are, but just observe people. I would say, here's how you start working on emotional intelligence, because I think it's key to a successful and happy life. If you just observe your environment, observe the people around you, how they're interacting with others, what's getting them to do and say the things that they're doing. And then what's getting you to do the things to saying and doing. So people don't always think through. I would say, I don't know the stat, but 98% of the time people aren't thinking about that stuff. It's amazing when you tune in emotionally to people that you hear what they're saying, not the words they're saying. People spew all kinds of stuff, right? But those words are coming from an emotion somewhere, right? Whether you're in sales and you're trying to get a client to buy something, why do they even want your product? Like, figure it out. Like, find out the emotional reason that they want what you have. And at the end of the day, if you figure that out and it's not what you offer, don't sell it. Point them in the right direction. I guarantee you it will come back to you in some way, right? And I can tell you stories of how many times like I've tried to do something that wasn't emotionally congruent and it doesn't work out for them or for me. But understanding why people are right. Why do kids act out? Why do kids do things they know they're not supposed to do, right? There's an emotional reason. They want to feel connected to their friends group, right? They don't want to feel guilty for not participating in something they shouldn't participate in, right? There's an emotional response to that, but we just fly off the handles as parents because they broke the rule. And it's because I said so. Well, why do you have that rule? Like, dig deep. What's the reason for is it to keep them safe? Is it to teach them to make good decisions on their own? Right? Like, I think too often we just set rules and standards, but we don't really actually think about what's the emotional reason behind that. And then if you can start to do that for yourselves and start to do that for the people in your world, oh my God, does it get good? It gets so good. Because if there's inconsistency or incongruence going on between people and relationships, if you figure out the emotion that's tied to that, and remember, emotions are never wrong or right? Like, you can't be wrong for feeling a certain way, but what you can do is understand the belief that caused the emotion and then maybe help them see, a different set of beliefs. And if they get in alignment with those sets of beliefs, then their emotions on that topic change. And then you're not fighting with them. Emotional intelligence is a lot of, it's a lot of hard work, but I think it's the most important. We are all emotional beings. And it's why, we get married. It's why we, cry at funerals. It's why we so much overwhelming joy when, our child is born. It's why, we get upset when our kids get hurt. We're just emotional people. We need human connection, and human connection is emotional. It is not logical, right? If you've ever met someone that is so stiff, purely rational all the time, logic, no emotion, monotone voice, no excitement, no negativity. They're just like there's this even keel, never change emotions. Like you lose interest in them, right? And it's hard to get them to, really engage. So emotional intelligence, that's the work that you need to do. You're never going to be done with that because life's going to teach you so many things that you haven't seen coming yet. That's, I would find books about it, find ways to communicate to people emotionally. That's the work that needs to be done. And I'm going to finish a little bit of like challenge yourself and emotional intelligence with this, right? So there's a process, and I told you I read books and that, but here's the process. Find the resource, books, podcasts, whatever it is, and then study it. It's not enough to just read it once or hear it once or interact with it once. We're humans. We don't change. We like habits. We like things that are automatic. We like things that are easy. But transformation and change is none of those things. And so for me, my process is I read a book, then I study it. And my studying looks like when I'm reading a book, I'm underlining things, writing things in the margin. Then I go back and then I write out. I've got a notebook. I told you once before, like I've got a bunch of notebooks, right? So I'll take that notebook and I write the title of the book and the date, and then I go through chapter by chapter, and I'm taking notes on the topics, the key things, the key phrases, the key concepts, and I'm writing them in that book. Why? Because for me, learning, I read by learning, or I'm learning by reading. I'm learning by writing it down. And then here's the next step, right? Is that I implement, I test it, I try it, right? So I've read it, I've written it, and now I'm trying it. I'm testing it, I'm implementing it. And if you follow those patterns of learn, read, listen, whatever it is, see it, you study it, and then you implement it, transformation happens. It just does, right? It's not by osmosis, right? You can't sleep on a textbook and learn the knowledge in a textbook, right? We used to joke about that in school, like right, when I was in PT school and lots of studying, we just like, well, I'm just going to fall asleep on my books and hopefully I'll pass the test tomorrow. That doesn't work, by the way. So read it, write it, and then implement it. And the key to it is implementation, right? The more you practice, the easier it gets, the more second nature it gets. The 3-second rule, challenging your beliefs. The more you challenge your beliefs deeply, why do you believe it? Changing your beliefs around that, the easier it gets to do that with every single belief that you have, right? And so when you get down the road years later, you know exactly who you are in that path to self-discovery. You've done the work. You've spent time on challenging your own beliefs, challenging the beliefs of others, working on your emotional intelligence, and you've got a process, a repeatable process to constantly grow and change. So do the work and challenge yourself, but reading a book or listening to a podcast once isn't going to do it, right? It's constant repetition. They say repetition is the mother of all learning. I don't care what form that's in, but you got to have repetition, right? It's why affirmations work. Positive affirmations, right? Speak in the present tense of how you see yourself in the future, right? I'm a successful person. I make $1 million. I'm a loving husband, right? And you're told to say that 5 times in the morning and 5 times at night, right? So why does it work? Even if you don't think you're there now, you're teaching your brain to believe in that statement. And if you repeat it enough times, you will believe it. And now your belief is that you're that loving husband. But it's you might not be there today, right? But if you say it enough, positive affirmation, it's repetition. That's why positive affirmations work. I mean, go read the book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about that. Repetition, right? Talk about that and be very specific about what it is that you're trying to achieve. Picture yourself in the future. Good book. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. He's got a couple great books, right? So all this stuff's not new, but I would tell you, like, if you haven't done it, you can listen to us, subscribe to our podcast, or you can go get the books and do the work yourself. But don't read it once. I've read that book 3 times. I'm currently in the middle of writing it down. So I just read it and now I'm going through my journal and I'm writing it out again, right? And then I'll be implementing again. So I've gone back to it. I'm going to dive a little bit more into like positive affirmations. And it's a tool that a lot of sales trainers will use. You know, salespeople get a lot of hits from coaches and life coaches and sales coaching. And so it's a tool that's used, but the I am statement has to be in the present tense with a future goal. Like, I am a loving husband, right? If that's the new positive affirmation, the thought process on that is that I don't feel I'm a loving husband right now. That's what I would like to be. That's the future goal. But the statement is written in the present tense, right? So I am a loving husband. If I were to just say that to you and you didn't know where it was coming from, right? I'm saying that I am. Like, that's me now. But the reality is I don't believe it yet. Right? That's something I'm working towards. So it's present tense of a future goal. You know, I used to do silly things with positive affirmations, like I want to make $200,000 a year. The challenge with that is it wasn't very specific. It was just a number. Why did I want the $200,000? Right? So I had to go through and start to think about, okay, well, why is it 200 grand? What does that give me and my family? What's the result of that? And so I would tell you, for positive affirmations, be as specific as you can. Right? So I'll go back to the loving husband comment, right? It should be more along the lines of, I am a loving husband that shows daily physical affection to my wife and consistent patience to my kids. That's way more descriptive than a loving husband. It tells me what a loving husband looks like. The more descriptive you can get, so it could be a little bit of a run-on sentence if you wanted it to be, right? But it should have things that you could benchmark yourself against. I'm a loving husband that shows daily affection to my wife. Well, you can measure that. You can look back on Tuesday and say, like, yeah, I didn't kiss her goodbye when I left for work. I ignored her when I got home, right? Like, I didn't show anything. I didn't give her a hug when I walked in the door. If that's who you want to become, then it needs to be very specific. Positive affirmations are a great tool to help build beliefs of who you want to become. And when you do enough of them and you do them consistently and repeatedly, then at some point you actually become that person. And then you can take that at one step further and you say, I'm a loving husband that shows daily physical attention to my wife, appreciation, right? You could take it even further and tag onto it. And then the affirmation changes to the next step. And so you can build on these affirmations over time. But it's positive self-talking, positive self-thoughts. And so if you have something you believe and then you are working on believing something new, positive affirmations can help you get there. I used to believe that I wanted to be successful, but I was a failure. I was failing my family, my friends, my parents, like all of that, right? And I just had dumb faith, if you will, right, that I would be someday. But I didn't understand the work that had to go into that. I was just wishing for it, right? It was a wish, not a goal. And we talked about that too, right? Goals have deadlines, wishes do not. Positive affirmations is one of those tools that you can use to start to change your belief in who you are. Before I get into the third topic for today's podcast, let me just say that I've been giving you like how to get to know Marty. Like, why am I doing this? It's an introduction to me. It's an introduction to play life differently, the values, the beliefs, the growth mindedness, right? The self-discovery. So I've been giving you some direct backdrop on some stories and things, but the podcast is going to shift, right? It's going to be an interview style podcast, right? We're going to have some guests on it and we already have some guests lined up. Pretty exciting. We've got former NBA champion, going to be joining us. And we've got CEO of a very successful company in the golf world. He's going to be joining us. You know, we have an NFL player that will probably be joining us. So we've got some guests lined up and it's going to be interesting because you're going to hear from them about how they played their lives differently. Right? You're going to see similarities, but they're going to share their stories, you know, and they're going to share their stories of playing life differently, you know, and maybe it's not their tagline, but they've got their own mantras and and things that kept them motivated through hard times. I'm excited to have those guests on. So stay tuned, click subscribe, come join us over the next few months for sure. It's going to be awesome. What's interesting is these people are in the top 1% of their craft, top 1% of their field. When you have an NBA champion, or you have the CEO of a company that started from nothing and is crushing it in their industry, that's the top one. It's actually the top probably 0.1 of 1%, right? So I'm so excited to have these people on board, and so stay tuned, click subscribe, and now we're going to jump into probably my favorite of today's topics, right? So we talked about opportunity, seeing it, identifying it, taking risks and getting in it, and then we talked about challenge yourself and emotional intelligence. And the last thing that I want to talk about is this thing that I think unsuccessful people think that successful people have. It's luck, right? So unsuccessful people say, oh, they just got lucky.